take the time to invest the time to create a real, meaningful, inclusive theme. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session on designing the perfect revenue kickoff to Fast Start 2023. My name is Elay Cohen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SalesHood, and excited to be here and excited to share some insights from years and years of running kickoffs, helping companies. I did the math last night. I think I've personally been involved in almost 200 kickoffs, and clearly my gray hair will prove some of that out. But we ran a survey. And this is the data that we collected. What kind of kickoffs are you planning? 59% of those surveyed, we surveyed a few hundred enablement practitioners, and we got 59% are planning an in-person kickoff, and 9% is virtual. And you can see hybrid is about 20%. And it could be that given what's happening in the economy, that we're shifting a little bit from in-person to more virtual and more hybrid. So interesting data here. And as we prepared for this specific session on designing the perfect kickoff to Fast Start 2023, we had this in mind. We figured some of you were doing in person and some of you were doing hybrid. So a lot of the strategies and the tactics that we're going to share here will be relevant to all of you. Before I get into any stories, before we walk through kind of the strategies and the tactics, I just wanted to say, take the time to invest the time to create a real, meaningful, inclusive theme. And I've chosen my words very carefully, meaningful and inclusive. And I want your themes to be aligned with your culture. I want your themes to be focused on priorities, your priorities, whatever those priorities are for the business. And I want those themes to be action-oriented and motivational, right? So as you're thinking about your theme, whether you're doing a sales kickoff or a revenue kickoff or a company kickoff or a go-to-market kickoff or whatever kickoff you're doing for your upcoming kind of a fiscal and new year, you should really have this in your mindset as you're brainstorming with your teams, as you're working through, what is the ideal theme for us? Because a theme, if you get it right, is the ultimate in driving the tone, driving alignment with your organization. You can imagine that a theme would help with the reinforcement. A theme is going to help with, getting all your speakers aligned, your sessions aligned. It's just, themes are great, and don't take it lightly is really my point here for everyone. Everything starts with a theme. You got to have a theme. And I know it's pretty obvious. And of course, we're going to have a theme, but the alignment with culture, so it's got the right words, the alignment with priorities, so it's driving the right outcomes, and then also motivating action. And then it needs to be wrapped around a theme of inclusiveness as well. And so just some ideas, right? So here are some themes people are thinking about. You can see some of them here. This isn't me saying choose one of these themes. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is these are the types of themes people are thinking about post-pandemic, thinking about what's happening. You can see investing in you is a theme that we're seeing more and more people are talking about, given everything happening in the economy and the market. And I'm going to say it, layoffs. Folks still need to believe that organizations are investing in their people. And so, we were involved in a mid-year kickoff where investing in you was the theme. Be bold, take charge, game changers, better together, right? Inclusiveness and actually coming together stronger, smarter, grow smarter, right? It's not grow at all costs anymore. And so these themes represent a shift from sales enablement to revenue enablement. These themes represent a shift from capacity to efficiency. These themes represent a shift in how we're thinking about business right now. And so,
hey, Eli, we've got a good
Larissa.
Here. Yeah, what if the company is kicking off the day before the SKO and they will also have a theme? Is it theme overload? That's a question from Kenny.
Right. Okay. I love that question. Theme overload. So ideally, Kenny, there is alignment between the CEO and the head of sales or the go-to-market team, and there is a company theme that makes sense for both. I think if you can make that happen, that would be ideal. Alternatively, you have a company theme which can be positioned as values, and it can be positioned as kind of these are the imperatives for the business. And then you can riff off of that theme and have a version of it that's going to be specific to either sales or the go-to-market. And so, I think, I think that's how I would think about it. So try and get alignment. Otherwise, make it flow from each other. So that way it's not two separate themes if you end up having two different sets of words, but they are feeding each other, because it should ultimately roll up to the kickoff that you're going to do, the company kickoff. Hopefully that was helpful, Kenny. Larissa, any other questions?
We're good right now. Thanks.
All right. So again, we did a survey and we collected some feedback, and this is what we heard: top kickoff theme. So I think themes are important, right? Culture, priorities, alignment. And so I wanted to highlight the importance of inclusiveness as well. And inclusiveness means a lot of different things. And I've got some examples here of how companies are thinking about inclusivity as they're thinking about their kickoffs. And so, first of all, having a diverse agenda when you're thinking about crafting your agenda, sessions and speakers that represent a broad section of teams, groups, geographies, really important, right? Having, a lot of times organizations, when they're building a theme, it could be all men, or it could be all America's people. You know what? You got to have a diverse set of genders. You need to have a diverse set of geographies. You can't just have all your, AE focused people. You need to have BDRs. You need to have, SCs. You need to have channel. So inclusivity is geography, is role, and is people. And I wanted to just highlight that because it's really important. All too often, organizations get to the final last phase. There may be a few days before their kickoff, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, we got to make this more inclusive. And I just don't want you to be in that place. And so I want to make sure that you're thinking through your agenda, your program, your speakers, your sessions, your topics, your geographies. If you do a virtual session, be mindful about the time zones, right? It's not okay to have a session that's going to start at, 2 a.m, for some folks. So just be mindful about that when you're thinking through your strategy. That's what I mean when I say inclusivity and inclusiveness. And so any questions, Larissa, so far anymore?
No, we're good. This is great stuff.
Okay, good. I love it. Thank you. It's great having your voice there. It's helpful. So thank you. So I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to share a story. Some of you have seen the video that I shared on LinkedIn, and it really helped shape what we believe to be best in class program design for kickoffs. And the story goes like this. I'm going to retell it just briefly. We walked into Mark's office. This is back in the day when I was at Salesforce. We walked into Mark Benioff's office maybe a week or two before kickoff, and we had an amazing agenda. At least we thought it was amazing. We had the days organized. We had every single minute in the agenda was accounted for, with sessions and workshops and training this and certification that and scan and deliver this. And you can imagine, given kind of it was an enablement-led agenda, what the agenda looked like. And we had it there. We had it on the screen, and Mark's kind of looking at it, and he just kind of looked directly at me and said, "You've got it all wrong." It doesn't feel good when your CEO tells you you've got it all wrong, but it's okay. I'm here to learn. Tell me, what can we do better? And that's when Mark educated us and said, the kickoff event has 3 parts. There's the pre, the during, and the post. And so if you walk away from this session with one thing, which is to have a strategy for your kickoff when you're designing your ultimate kickoff, your perfect kickoff, that thinks about what you want your people to do before the event, what you want your people to do at the event, and then what you want your people to do after the event. And this works for regardless of whether you're doing in person, virtual, or hybrid. And when I say, what is it you want your people to do before, during, and after? it's up to us as enablement practitioners, as leaders, as sales leaders, as marketing leaders to think about what content makes sense for people to learn ahead of time and what will benefit the organization and the experience if they went through it ahead of time. What content is most suitable for in-person or for collaboration, and then what makes sense for people to do afterwards. And I've got kind of a riff on this pre, during, and post, which is inspire, align, and certify. So because people then ask me, so what should be in the pre and what should be in the during and what should be in the after? And I'm going to go through and give you some examples of each one of these areas. We're going to go through in detail. We're going to give you examples of what are some good tips and tactics around pre-work that makes sense to front end a kickoff experience. And then what are some things to do afterwards with certifications? But you can see here, pre, during, post. So you got that in your minds. And then now you can apply these words to it. We want to inspire people ahead of time. We want to get them, energized and motivated, inspire them, get them excited. We want to align people. It's really important that when you bring people together, whether in person or virtual, it's about alignment. And it's about ultimately training and certifying. And this is what Mark told me. Mark said that before, you can do training before and you can do certification after. But when we've got the teams together, it's alignment. We need to get teams aligned. We need to share the messages. We need to get them talking to each other. We need to get them collaborating together. And this is about accelerating everything that we want to accomplish through alignment. And everything that we do when we are together, either virtually or in person, needs to be about alignment. And so as you're thinking about your strategies and you're starting to adjust your agendas and you're creating the perfect kickoff program, think about, okay, what can we do to inspire beforehand? What are some activities and what content makes sense for us to align people on? And then ultimately, what can we do to certify afterwards? Like, for example, do we need product managers going through feature by feature by feature and explaining the product set at kickoff? Probably not. We love our product managers. They're amazing. That is good work to do ahead of time. Why don't we have folks do some product training ahead of time? That way they can start thinking about the product suite. And then when we get them aligned, we can start explaining the why and we can start talking about the features. Or you can do the product training on the backside where they get the accreditation and the certifications. That's the kind of mindset I want you to have when you're designing the perfect kickoff. And Larissa, I see some questions coming in.
Yeah, so Cheryl is asking a great question. What about flipping inspire and align? She says she was looking at pre-work as what you need to foundationally know so we can engage during our RKO.
Sure. I think you could flip it. I think, Cheryl, that's okay. I think if I think the important point is to have a core word, a verb, an action-oriented verb that is going to drive. It's interesting, there was a tweet that I did on this and people were going back and forth flipping the word. So Cheryl, it's kind of funny that you bring it up that way. So yeah, it's alignment happens through action. And so if we can get folks aligned with messaging, if we can get folks aligned with our themes ahead of time, and then you use the front end to inspire, I think that's okay. So some other folks thought educate would be front and the middle was a bundling of inspiration and alignment and motivation. So Cheryl, fair point. And I think for you and your team, as you're thinking about this, coming up with your 3 words that make sense for you so you can drive alignment, because really it's about when you're pulling your teams together, when you're pulling your product marketing folks together, when you're pulling all the contributors of content and all leaders, like Cheryl is an amazing leader. And so her job will be to okay, here's how this kickoff is going to be amazing. And so we're going to start off with alignment, and then we're going to focus in on inspiration. And then but getting your leaders to agree and come up with those words is critical, because then it's easy to build content. It's harder to unwind content later. And it never feels good when the content was a mismatch of where you are in the journey, pre, during, and post. Cheryl, thanks for the question. It's awesome. Any other comments or from anything in the feed?
Yeah, Jay Hoffman is saying he's been evangelizing this approach, the pre, during, and post, ever since multipliers, and it's getting great traction. And
amazing.
Yeah, he likes Cheryl's idea of flipping those 2 words.
Got it. Okay. I think everyone knows I'm a pretty hands-on doer, and maybe we just go into the slides and change it right now. But I think that I was half joking. But listen, keep the questions coming. Keep them coming. Let's keep going forward because I've got a lot of information to share. So we're going to talk about some pre-work ideas right now. And so the first one, and we've seen this work beautifully, right? So, first, the assumption here is you have an easy way to get your teams to share and record videos, right? Like a system like SalesHood, mobile will make it really easy to capture, quote unquote, user generated stories. And so here's a great way to align. It's funny, align and inspire together, right? Here's a great way to capture the theme. Great way to capture the most important words or thoughts from your CEO or go-to-market leader by having them pose a question. So for example, if investing in you is the theme, you could pose a question around, how do you want us to invest in you? Or what are you going to do to invest in you? Right. And so imagine that you had your 500, 1,000, 250, whatever the number of folks that are coming to your kickoff, each answering a question that is mapped back to your theme. And it could be an inspirational question as well, like how are you going to achieve your goals in 23? Or what are your top 3 priorities for 23? Or what are your top, what do you want to accomplish in 23? So I love the idea of asking an inspirational, aspirational, thematic question that is going to help already. I use the word, get the party started. And a lot of organizations that we've worked with, they'll do this. The CEO will, just really excited for kickoff. Our theme this year is going for growth. And I want to ask you, what are you going to do in 23 to go for growth? Period. We're done. Really easy to do that. And then everyone's recording a quick 20, 30-second snippet. And then the beautiful thing is that's content. So when you actually run your event, you can start pulling together those videos. Those videos can be used during breaks at keynotes. They can be used during keynotes. They can also be used in the future for role-based onboarding because you can start organizing that content. It's amazing, right? The content is killer. When you do a question like this, that's really easy to do, and folks will get creative as well. So your culture will get developed. It's pretty remarkable. So this is one idea for pre-work. You can see there what it looks like in the stories section in SalesHood. It's pretty awesome. So you want to make it accessible. You want to make it easy to use. You want to make it aspirational. And listen, Jay and Cheryl and all of you on here that are SalesHood customers, you know how powerful this is and how easy it is to do in our platform. And I am going to keep this talk agnostic because I want to make sure folks are walking away with best practices that they can apply, even if you're not a SalesHood customer. But this is the first idea. Ask a question. It's a simple concept. It's amazing. Get the party started early, tie it to the theme, and then you can reuse some of the content. Wait, there's more. Pitch practice, right? A lot of times organizations are rolling out new messaging, right? And very common. Kickoff is a time to refresh the messaging, especially now with everything happening in the economy. And what I encourage organizations to do is, as much as you can, there may be a 8 to 10 minute pitch coming out. Maybe there's a new brand relaunch. Maybe there's complete new messaging. You can start getting your teams to align with some of the core messaging so there it is, Cheryl, right? It kind of, the align is working a little better at the front, because you could roll out like a 30-second pitch message, which has like 3 to 4 sentences, just some foundational language and words you want them to start practicing, and have everybody, watch, the short pitch. And I'm not suggesting to do like an 8 to 10 minute, everyone's got to do the slides ahead of time, where we have had companies do that. And it's been very effective, because then you get additional benefits of community accelerated learning. And then leaders, when they're on stage, they can say, we've watched all your pitches and we've learned from your pitches and we've made some changes. So regardless of whether you're doing a short one, like a 30-second pitch, or a 60-second one, or you're doing, an 8 to 10 minute version, Doing this ahead of time does get the party started. It does drive alignment, and it enables leaders who are going to be on stage to be informed around where people are doing well and not doing well with some of these messages. It also holds people accountable. And what I love also is by doing this beforehand, you can crowdsource some of the really, really, really good ones. So how cool is it when you're celebrating some of your winners, you're inspiring your teams to push themselves, and you've got some of your top performers on stage during the actual event, and you're celebrating those top performers, and you can go, you know what? Here's a great example of why this is a top performer. Check out how they did their opening pitch, and you can share a quick snippet from their presentation. That's why this content is so critical and holding folks accountable. And this is why I love doing at least the elevator pitch, a short 30-second elevator pitch. And by doing the peer-to-peer, you're driving the asynchronous collaboration ahead of time. It's really, really powerful. And again, the peer-to-peer is something that SalesHood does really well. And there's a huge benefit in getting your teams to see each other, because guess what happens? And our data proves this. If you have people do either a question or you have people do a short pitch, before the event, folks are going to start flipping through the leaderboards. Who's on top? Who's not on top? And hey, you know what? If I meet you, Jay, at the event, and we fist bump, we say hello, we talk for a few minutes, guess where I'm going next? I want to hear Jay's pitch. And so there's an interesting peer-to-peer that happens with this as well. And then I love the idea of playing the best ones like I talked about. And Larissa, comments, feedback, questions, anything? What's going on in the chat?
Lots of comments here. Jay is joking that you're stealing his framework. I
love it, Jay. We can steal from each other all day long, my friend.
And Cheryl wants to run a competition that's like, explain what we do to my 78-year-old dad who's completely non-technical.
Right. I love it. That's it's so funny. I love it. A lot of the times folks will use SalesHood, and the challenge on the elevator pitch will be, imagine you're at like a barbecue and you're waiting in line to get your hot dog, and the person next to you, like, hey, what do you do? And whether it's your 78-year-old grandparent, or whether it's a school teacher, or whether it's someone at a party, or whether it's someone at a cocktail party, whatever it is, speaking in like regular English and being able to articulate it without all the all the extra big marketing words, no disrespect, I think is powerful. Cheryl, I love it. The my 78-year-old grandparent challenge. Amazing. You just made me laugh. I love it. All right. I have more. So that's the pitch practice. Great pre-work, great way to get teams aligned, great way to get people connected, collaborating. Another one is win stories. And so, the ability to capture win stories. And so a lot of folks think, oh, win stories is just for AEs. Well, it's not. You can have win stories for SDRs and BDRs. They can share their best meeting that they scheduled, or they can talk about, their best, the hardest fought contact that they're able to schedule. Whatever their success stories are. CSMs will have adoption stories. Renewal managers will have renewal stories. So, in the spirit of inclusiveness, if you're going to do the pre-work, and you can see here, what we do is we provide the ability for companies to customize the questions. So you can make it really easy. Pop open your mobile. You got a bunch of questions for AEs. What's the deal size? Basically, we want to help you map the questions to your process, to your buyer's journey, to your sales process. So that way you can guide your teams and then do role-based stories as well. So 3 great examples: asking a question, pitch practice, and then win stories. An additional one is you can do some mini product training ahead of time. That's another one. I wrote about that in my book, Enablement Mastery, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. My hope here is to get you thinking a little bit more broadly about ways to get the kickoff party started before the actual event. And that way you're not going to do what I did, which is jam everything into a 2 to 3 day agenda. We want you to think about the agenda over a 30, 60, 90-day window of time. And so now I'm going to move to kind of the during, right? So let's talk about some of the things that we should be doing during our kickoffs, right? So pre, during, post. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm giving you strategies and tactics across the entire life cycle of an amazing kickoff experience. So first of all, I want to highly recommend that you do meaningful group exercises. And so this, this is about, being thoughtful about what it is you're trying to accomplish when you bring your people together. And so these meaningful group exercises feel like, maybe it's an account prioritization exercise, or maybe it's how do you apply the pitch to a specific new territory, or maybe it's a redoing of that elevator pitch, but now you can do it for a different persona. You want to make it meaningful, but you want to make it and collaborative, right? So meaningful group exercises that are either going to support kind of your goals, right? If your goal, for example, is to bring teams together that don't normally see each other, so topics aside, you're going to want to think through, are we going to keep the exercises role-based? Are we going to do cross-team collaboration? Are we going to do cross-geo collaboration, right? So that's the thoughtfulness I want you to put in when you're organizing your groups and breakouts. So that's number one. Number two, purposeful conversations. What does that mean? I think putting questions on the back of badges, having kind of birds of a feather tables by topic, having themed happy hours, or even themed, kind of meals and drinks and things like that. That's what I mean by purposeful conversation, right? Give people something to talk about that is either aligned with the theme, aligned with your go-to-market, aligned with one of your top priorities. And so you can really use the networking as a way softly to continue to drive reinforcement, to continue to drive alignment. That's why I'm going back and forth on the inspiration and the alignment, the pre and the during. Another one is stories. So you're going to want to have your top performers sharing their stories. There's no question about it, right? If you don't have speakers and even customers sharing their stories, you're missing an opportunity to really inspire and align your teams. Don't be afraid to share losses as well. When in the survey results, when we work with companies, the companies that do losses, it's strange, not strange. It's the first time I saw this data, it was strange, but afterwards I realized it makes total sense. The loss reviews and very undefensive, open conversations about how to win, why you lost and what happened and what could have been done better are the most attended, highest valued, highest scored session, because you know what? It's a great learning opportunity for everyone. So when we talk about top performers, just want to make sure that you are including wins and you are talking about losses a little bit too. Don't want it to be like a downer, but you do want to make sure that you're learning from the losses. Again, when you talk about wins, make sure you've got an inclusive set of winners that you're highlighting. Look across geos, look across roles, look across genders, make sure that you've got appropriate representation. Really important as well. When you are, there was one year at Salesforce where we had 200 people come up on stage for a deal win. So when you are doing a deal win story, and it strangely was a $200 million deal, it's kind of funny. But when you have a win story, make sure you're being inclusive of everyone. The SDR that scheduled a meeting, the services folks that made them go live successful, the CSM that added the upsell, all the PMs that participated, everyone that participated should be listed. Don't be afraid to have those slides up with everyone's faces on them. Another thing for during, and again, this stuff is pretty obvious, but a lot of times sales leaders and marketing leaders and our subject matter experts, yeah, I got it. I'll be fine when I get up on stage. You can't assume they got it. You can't. What we want you to do is to make sure that you are dry running folks. And then we want you to tie the themes together, tie all the presentations together with the themes. So that way the theme is so critical, your macro theme, and then being clear on the pre, during, and after. And then that way the presentations can be completely aligned. So that way it does feel like a seamless experience. And so if your theme is invest in you or go for growth, those words should be repeated over and over and over. And it's more than just a little logo or thing on the slides. The presentations need to genuinely, authentically come from a place where they are aligned with what the company is trying to do and why the theme has been chosen. And then, energy, music. I was playing a little bit of music at the start. I love music. I think it's really important to do that. And I think, listen, if 30 minutes go by and you either haven't changed the vibe or the energy, you haven't played a video, you haven't played music, you haven't gotten everyone to stand up and shake, it's time for a break. I don't care if you gotta insert those breaks into the flow of your in-person experience and event, so folks don't drift off, and because you want to keep people engaged all the time. It's really, really important. Larissa,
a lot of comments and some questions here. So,
okay, what are some comments first?
Just comments, Cheryl, on alignment. Strong opinion that the event objectives and outcomes tie the sessions together, not just the theme.
Yep.
And Jay says, aren't the objectives and outcomes defined by the theme? And Jay has a question. Should the win stories be recorded and then played and discussed, or presented live and discussed?
Depends. I think sometimes folks are chasing deals to the last minute. You got to kick off in the second 2 weeks. So so these are great comments and questions, and keep them coming. And Jay, if sometimes you can get the recordings ahead of time, and then it's watched as pre-work, and then what you're doing is you're having a panel discussion with the team, and then the presumption is everyone's watched the videos ahead of time, and then they can come in and have a discussion, go a little deeper. That's very common, right? That's called community. That's how you accelerate this and you compress this. If you can put the right content in the pre-work, whether it's product, pitch, win stories, questions, and then you can piggyback on that content and use it in your keynotes. So that way you can continue the conversation, go a little deeper, clarify things. That's a beautiful thing. That's why I'm trying to drive this pre-work, because whatever pre-work you do ahead of time, you're able to use it in your actual events. That's magic, because that ultimately will compress time to revenue and time to your go-to-market. Because normally folks, what they're normally doing is they're using the keynote to share the pitch, to do the product features, to do all the stuff. And folks are like, oh my God, there's so much here. And then they're doing the reinforcement training, and you're 90 days later, you're like, why don't people get it? If you insert the pre-work ahead of time, leave time in the agenda, and give them snippets of it ahead of time. Remember, the forgetting curve is real. And folks are able to learn it ahead of time, be introduced to it, start getting aligned with the language, practice a little bit, and then you reinforce those same things at the keynote, and then you follow up with the certification, and then you do the deeper training. It's multi-layered here, and you're almost guaranteed you're going to get the impact that you're trying to get. Jay, hopefully that was okay. Not too long of an answer.
All right, we got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Cody asks, would you suggest ever sharing tactical information pre-event, things like what to expect during the event, operational changes happening, etc.?
Yeah, I think there's always a lineup of people that want stage time at the kickoff, and it's a tough one, right? Because everyone's important and everything's important. One way is to create the space and to say, hey, listen, I get this process that you're doing is the most important thing, and it's going to change the way we go to market. I hear you, right? We're listening, we're empathetic, active listening. The right way for us to deliver this content is if you record a 3 to 5 minute video and we set up a quick three question test, I can guarantee you that every single person will watch it before the kickoff. And then you could do a little card at the tables with some refresher. And then, you know what? Why don't you host a happy hour, and we'll make a happy hour be all about the process, so we can make it fun. And so absolutely, I think if there are topics that could be a little dry, but important, I think you can do it as pre, and then you can come up with fun ways to reinforce it in the live event, and then drive additional certification on the back end. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. So another one from Eugene. Are you able to share great sales kickoff show flows as examples?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? I think we can do that as a follow-up, Eugene. Absolutely. I've got a bunch of them. And that's a great ask. So we will make sure that we follow up with some show flow examples. Exactly. And show flow, let's just be clear, Eugene, are we talking about the 2 to 3 day show flow? Or are we talking about the 30-day show flow, which includes the before and the after? What does Eugene think? Both.
Yeah, I would say both. Yep.
Yes.
Both.
Good. We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Let
then
me do a quick. Okay, I got to move on a little bit more because
okay.
we're
Sounds
running.
good.
We're running. This is great. A lot of engagement. Thank you so much for the questions. So I wanted to share this. If you go to my LinkedIn, I posted a video this morning, and when we talk about engagement, this is a slot machine. It's a slot machine that we had at a kickoff way back when, 2011, I think the year was. And what we did was, we had 4 clouds at the time. And so the theme was do impossible things as a team. And you can see the 4 clouds were 4 priorities. And we took the 1,000 people that were at the event. We took all their profile pictures. It was right when Chatter came out at Salesforce. We took all their profile pictures and we put them into a database. And this slot machine randomized their faces. And Mark would pull the slot machine at 8:30 in the morning and then at different times during the day just to kind of get the energy up. And the moment that he goes, it's slot machine time. Actually, it was TikTok time. Then the Keisha TikTok song would play. Amazing, fun. Everyone dancing, feeling good. And guess what happens when those 4 faces show up? You got to come up on stage. And on the back of your badge, there are 3 questions. And one of the questions is, what's your pitch? And that was how we kept everyone on their toes. And I had a lot of people over the last 2 weeks. What was that slot machine thing again? So I dug up an old video and thought I'd share it. So I encourage you to go to my LinkedIn and you can take a look at that video. I'm not going to play it now, but you'll get the feel for it. It had the whole room like on fire. And you'll actually see the comments from a lot of people that were there. It's memorable. It's memorable and it keeps people engaged and it gets people to be present. The last thing you wanted was your face to show up there and you're not in the room. Like, just imagine. And that it only happened with one person, and that person had a broken leg and couldn't come to Vegas for the event. So we did good. So here's something for you. We ran our multipliers conference a couple of weeks ago. It was a huge success. We'll have the replays soon. I created a playlist about 43 songs, 2.5 hours. And I'm a DJ, right? So I personally curated a list of kind of 2022 music. And so, there's a link and Larissa will share it with you. Listen, it's one of these things that you always say you're going to get it done. And so I thought I'd create one for you and I thought I'd share our playlist with you. So at least you can check that box on your list of to-dos, because you know what, when you're in between breaks, you want to have a good vibe. You want to have good music and you want folks to kind of be, hey, that's pretty cool. It's hip, it's trendy. You got a good vibe. So hopefully you like the music and hopefully you find this successful. I am an Apple iTunes person. So for those of you that are thinking, oh my God, I can't believe Elay doesn't use Spotify. It is what it is, but I can't give up my playlist. So that's my playlist for you. And so now let's talk about the third pillar here, which is post-event reinforcement. Now, if you've done this right, and if you've got pre-work and that pre-work has activities that our teams are doing, they're either recording a pitch, they're getting score, they're getting feedback, they're reviewing their peers, if they're recording win stories and then they're scoring win stories, if they're answering a question, if they're doing some product training and doing some quizzes, whatever that pre-work is, well, you're actually tracking engagement. So that's data. And then you can do some engagement, track some data in person. You've got attendance. You've got a lot of things that you can track actually in your event, regardless of whether it's in person or virtual. And then after the event, you're reinforcing your goals, you're reinforcing your themes, you're reinforcing your messaging, you're doing either skills training before or after, you're doing the messaging certification before or after, and then product certifications, right? You can also take the amazing kickoff content and create what we call coaching huddles for managers, which is basically meetings in a box. Amazing. And then what we really, and why is all this important, right? The structure and the data, because we are moving from intuitive to data driven when it comes to how we're supposed to be managing enablement. We want to be able to correlate. You want to be able to know, hey, did this kickoff have an impact, right? So if you're trying to grow faster and you're going into new segments and you're rolling out new products, don't you want to know which teams and why certain teams are generating more pipeline or have more meetings? And so the idea of taking your kickoff activity, which is supposed to live across a 30, 60, 90 day, it's a quarter, right? It's really a quarter of kickoff when you think about it, because you got your pre-work, your actual event, and then you've got some certifications that are going to be phased afterwards. You want to track that and you want to know who's completing the work, who's competent, who's confident. That data is so critical to being able to assess what worked and what didn't work. And so that's why we're really pushing hard on this 3-phase approach to delivering the perfect revenue kickoff, the pre, during, and the after. And the reinforcement is probably the most, like, I get how important it is to have our leaders share and align and inspire and motivate. It's so important. I know how important it is to get our teams to come together and to network and to meet and to high five and to just kind of be together. I know how important that is. I really do. But let's not underestimate how important this part is as well, because we got to make sure that once people leave, remember that forgetting curve, what there's a joke. What is it like? I think the only thing people, don't forget from Vegas is their hangover, right? It's a joke, right? And so what we want to do is we want to reinforce all the learning, we want to reinforce all the messages, all the great content that we shared, and space it out over a 30-day window of time afterwards. Map out certifications, map out the product certifications, the messaging certifications, do skills-based reinforcement. You can roll out a methodology, but you can't expect your people to learn and apply the methodology in 2 or 3 days. And then you check a box and go, everyone's got it, right? Everyone doesn't have it. And so this is why we rolled out MedPick. And so MedPick, I don't know, I think we did some stats, a high percentage of our customers are using MedPick. I think I saw somewhere that 60 to 70% of B2B SaaS companies have some version of MedPick or Medic inside of their Salesforce system, and they're using it every day to kind of just qualify their deals. So for those of you aware of our MedPick launch, amazing. For those of you who are not aware, what we did was we took MedPick, and we created a library of MedPick videos. So you could use MedPick as pre-work, have people watch the videos on metrics, economic buyer, decision process, decision criteria, paper process, procurement process, implications of pain, competition, right? That's MedPick, right? It's basically a really strong, solid B2B SaaS sales qualification criteria methodology. And this is something that you can introduce as pre-work. You could reinforce on stage by having your teams share their stories and explaining their stories in the context of the MedPick letter. So when they tell their stories, they would be aligned with the letters, which is amazing. Guess, look how much layers of training you're doing without even training. And then afterwards, you do formal training, formal coaching, formal deal reviews, formal certifications on MedPick. So this is an example of a turnkey pre-packaged program that if anyone is a MedPick user, if you're using MedPick and you want a way to kind of scale it, you should talk to us. We'll absolutely help you. But regardless of whether you're using SalesHood or not, what I described is a great framework. Do some MedPick training on the front end, reinforce MedPick at your kickoff, have your win stories, and have your leaders talk about the power of MedPick and how they won following the different process, and then do the more detailed hands-on training and deal coaching, deal training afterwards. Let me pause, take a breath. Larissa, how are we doing on the comments?
Yeah, Jay is making a comment. So many SCOs historically ended the event and then sent everyone into the field to sell without any follow-up, reinforcement, or certification. General rule of thumb, if you don't use it in 2 weeks, 85% is gone. So follow-up is essential to stickiness.
I love it. Thank you. I think next time, Jay, you and I will do this together. I love it. Can't wait. Anything else, Larissa? Any other cool comments?
When you were talking about playlists and energy, the number of people in the audience seem to be lucky to have DJs and executive leadership teams who also are musicians.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So some of you can use my playlist. Pardon me, Larissa?
Yeah. And then there's just one more side conversation about the ideal duration for during, if you want to weigh in on that. There was some back and forth about 2 days versus 3 days versus 2.5. Do you have any input on that?
Yeah. So, I think 2 to 3 days. I think you need a day of travel on either side. And then you also need to leave time for the regional breakouts too. And so if you've got, kind of a most companies will do some kind of company kickoff on day one, and then do something motivational, like a Tony Robbins, as an example. I know that's crazy big budgets, but like whatever that motivation thing is, either on the back end of day one, day two, and then you kind of split out into your groups. So at a minimum, you're going to need 2 days, one for everyone, and then one for the role-based breakouts. When I say role-based breakouts, I mean, like the CSM team may want to have a special day for them, and the sales organization may have a team, or if it's all company on day one, then it's all revenue in the AM of day two, and then it's the different segments on the afternoon of day three, and then you can even do something maybe fun on day three. Excuse me, day one, day two, and then day three. Don't forget to include some fun too, right? And volunteer activity. Some depending on where you are in the world, you can do a lot of different fun things socially as well. Like for example, at our multipliers conference, we decided to do a boat trip, right? Just to people haven't come together in a long time. So just being able to kind of have some fun, be outdoors, enjoy the city that you're in. And so that's an important piece of this. Thanks for that question, Larissa. I think it's great.
Yeah.
This has been a great session. I hope folks have gotten some value and some ideas. And our goal here was to share some stories, to share some strategies and tactics to help you think through a more strategic and the ultimate, revenue kickoff. Why? To help you fast start. And so by taking our framework of before, during, and after, and inserting pre-work, during, and post, you're going to be able to fast start, because you're going to be able to layer in the messaging and the training, and that way you can achieve your revenue goals a lot faster by aligning folks and inspiring folks, and ultimately training and certifying them. But you're going to need a system. And so for those of you that are using SalesHood, thank you. And, please, if you haven't engaged myself and our customer success team, we're here to support you. And for those of you that are thinking, wow, you know what, like, it seems like you can do a lot with SalesHood, and just know that SalesHood is purpose-built for revenue enablement. Kickoffs is an amazing part of what we do because of the peer-to-peer, because of the mobile engagement, because of the asynchronous collaboration that can happen. Because of the ease of use of capturing the videos and doing the whole video scoring. So, and because of the consumption of the bite-sized content, and because you can actually use SalesHood just for kickoffs if you want. And so let us know. We would love to support you. And you may have another sales enablement, revenue enablement platform. That's okay. If you want to try SalesHood out, use us for your kickoff, we'd love to work with you. And so my team and I are here to help you design the perfect revenue kickoff. And if you want to speak to any one of our experts, some of you have already reached out to me and scheduled time with me, but I know my team and I are here to support you. We can brainstorm with you on ways to rethink your program strategy, your kickoff strategy, and to help you organize a pre, during, and post framework. We can give you feedback on what content should go when, and we can also spend time with you and do a demo if you're interested to see how you could use SalesHood to optimize your kickoff experience. Why? To ultimately correlate the engagement before, during, and after with revenue outcomes. So that way you can definitively tell your leaders what's working, what's not working. Hope you got a ton of value here from this session on designing the perfect revenue kickoff to Fast Start 2023. And thank you everyone for being a part of this session.